right, welcome to the November 6th Shelburne Development Review Board meeting. I'd like to open up for public comment. Seeing none, I'd like to ask if anyone needs to recuse himself from any of the items on the agenda tonight.
I'm not looking to recuse, but just a friendly reminder, number 10. I've known the Meniers. We actually helped build the food shack over here as a Boy Scout project.
Okay.
So I know them through that.
Do you feel that will make you...
No.
Okay.
I was on the board the first time they came through.
All right.
I'm just reiterating.
Any board members have any concerns?
Nope.
All right, very good. All right. Moving on to the next order of business. What did I forget?
Any member of the public have a problem with
Oh,
any board member?
any recusals, that's right. Anyone in the public domain want to express any concerns about any board members participating in any of the applications? Seeing none, we'll move on. So the next item of business is the approval of the minutes of October 16th.
I would move to approve the minutes.
That's the wrong date. Not? No, you're good. All right.
No. That's right.
Any comments? Because I do have a comment I want to add to that. So Mary Ann, there was on the document, on the minutes, talking about the church. There's a lot of back and forth about what are we approving, what are we discussing tonight? Are we talking about the stormwater? Are we talking about the lights? And I think I made a clear statement to say, all right, we're going to address the lighting, the application as it's presented.
Tell me how you want the...
Yeah, that actually appears in the minutes.
Did it say that? Because I couldn't find it.
It does.
It does.
Where at?
There's a lot of toing and froing, but it's in there.
I missed that.
And then it concludes with it.
I know we conclude that way. I just want to make it clear that we as the board decided we're just going to talk about the lighting.
Maybe it's because it concluded, I thought so.
No.
I was looking for it. Somewhere as we were doing the back and forth.
Right, so right under the deliberation decision, it says you will meet with the planning director to discuss the catch basins.
Yeah.
And then my motion says, as the electrical plan is submitted, with the understanding any issues outside the scope of the application will be dealt with by the DRB chair and the town staff separately.
All right.
Which is what you asked us to say.
That's what I want to make sure we're covered.
Right.
Okay.
So I think we're covered there.
All right. Good. Okay. That's the only comment I had. So we're good. All right.
Okay, a motion was made and I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. All right. Very good. Okay, first application is application DR 19-14, which is to be continued or from a continuation? How do I read that, Ravi?
It's from a continuation.
Okay.
That should be continued.
Okay. And we're going to continue it to when? November 20th? All right.
I'll make a move that the matter be continued till November 20th. I'll make a motion that the matter be continued to November 20th.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, takes care of that. Next one, application DR 19-21. Application by Christina Jensen for design review to replace windows and add a new flagstone walkway. Property is located at 1115 Falls Road, located in Shelburne Falls Mixed Use District, Village Design Review Overlay District, Floodplain and Watercourse Overlay District, and Stormwater Overlay District. All right, is anyone here to talk to or Ravi, can you kick us off? Because
I don't think the applicant is presently here, so
Yeah.
I would suggest continuing it until...
we'll just catch up, all right.
Yeah.
So we'll put that one on a temporary hold. All right, moving on. Application DR 19-22.
Before moving on,
Yeah.
Jeff's, I would suggest making a motion to continue it after a certain item.
I'll make a motion to move item number 6 on the agenda to the end of the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. You're not here, you're last. All right, application DR 19-22, application by Seth Whittier for design review to demolish a mobile home unit and install a new Vermont home. Property is located at 194 Shelburne Wood Drive. It's located in the Village Center District, Village Design Review Overlay District, Floodplain and Watercourse Overlay District, and Stormwater Overlay District. All right, Ravi, you want to kick us off?
Sure,
Or-
so, yeah, the applicant is present for this
Great,
item.
okay.
For this item, the Historic Preservation and Design Review Commission reviewed this during their October 24th, 2019 meeting, and they recommended approval to the board with the conditions listed below, that if there's a change in the location of the new Vermont home or the design of the entry steps, the applicant must return to the Historic Preservation Design Review Commission, and a zoning permit must be required prior to the removal of the existing mobile home and the installation of the new Vermont home. At this point, staff will defer to the applicant.
All right, would anyone like to speak to this? Come on up, introduce yourself. Okay. I'll swear you in. However you want to do it.
As long as you're reading.
Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Can you state your name for the record?
Seth Whittier.
Okay,
I'm not sure, do I start or do you have questions?
you go right ahead.
Okay, the only thing is that at this point, I'm just applying for the demolition permit.
Okay,
Because I need to, there was some confusion between myself and the Shelburne Wood board, the design review board for Shelburne Wood. And I need to run my house through that board first before running it through this board. So I'm just looking for the demolition permit at this point, and then the house, I will reapply for the house.
okay. I have a question. Why is this in front of the board?
That is an excellent question.
It's been very confusing.
Yes, so with the Shelburne Wood Mobile Home Park, it is within the the Design Review Overlay District. So any modifications to exteriors, it has to go through the Historic Preservation Design Review Commission and therefore to you and then to me.
Okay.
So it's mainly because the mobile home park is within that overlay district
Okay.
that it's in front of you. The Planning Commission is working on bylaw changes to not require minor modifications, minor applications to come before you.
Okay.
And certain applications that they deem is worthy of administrative approval. So that's in the works. Does that answer?
Yeah, it does.
all of your questions? Okay.
What's the probability and likelihood that that'll happen and when? For the sake of the public,
I mean,
and for the
it's-
sake of us.
Yeah, I am safe to say that it's pretty high, but and it still takes a while, and anything can
A
happen.
year?
No, it's probably 90 to 120 days.
There's
Zoning
it has to
bylaw
be.
revision.
Okay.
Yeah, it has to be publicly warned, and
All right.
there is a process behind
If
it.
we get back to the mechanics, he's
Sure.
looking for a
Demolition.
demolition permit.
Yes.
Now, the proposed approval says that he has to obtain a zoning permit before that can happen.
Yes.
And can he obtain a zoning permit without action by this board?
No. So for demolition in this overlay district, that does require a zoning permit and approval from you. So yeah, for this overlay district, I have to issue a zoning permit for demolitions.
Okay.
To approve the demolition request for 194 Shelburne Wood, is that the right address? Shelburne Wood Drive.
I second that.
I'm gonna suggest a change.
Okay.
The staff recommended that we have two conditions on it. One is if there's a change in the location of the home or design of the entry, the applicant has to return to the Historic Preservation, et cetera, Society. And the second is a zoning permit should be required prior to the removal.
Wait a second.
We're only approving
destroying the house.
demolition.
Yeah,
We're not doing anything else.
yeah, he's coming back with another permit.
I know, I saw that there, so it goes back to Ravi. We're
Well,
demolishing the house.
That's what I asked, though, and he said, yes, he has to issue a zoning.
Just for the
Just for the demolition, so,
That's all we're talking
yeah,
about.
so you can amend the permit
Right.
conditions, those are just recommended permit conditions.
So
that
we're just
you can change.
just approving the demolition and a zoning permit required prior to demolition.
Okay, so we're gonna ignore the change in the steps.
Right, because
Yes.
he'll be
Correct.
coming back with a
Yeah.
whole new permit.
Right.
He doesn't get a new house.
Okay.
If you never come back, you don't get another house.
Should I second that now?
Please.
You already seconded, because he's not changing his motion. so-
Right.
Okay, we're done.
We're
So
good.
it's,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You did it.
Okay, thank you. Do you need anything else from me, or?
No.
should I
No.
just skedaddle?
Go start taking it down.
Oh, well, one question I have about that is, do you guys, does the town have any, or is it okay to ask a question?
Sure.
Sure.
Does the town have any regulations on if it's demolished or if it's just simply hauled away, the house? Is either one of those fine with the town?
In this case,
Doesn't
the
matter.
house being hauled away is still a
Yeah,
demolition.
but
Okay.
you can do either, though.
You can
right?
do
Yeah,
either,
okay.
but it's still a demolition that would require a permit.
Right, yeah, I wasn't trying to get around the
Yeah.
permitting, but, okay. So I need to seek a zoning approval permit with you and,
Yep.
yep, thanks.
Okay,
All right. have a
good luck.
Thank you, good luck. Okay. Next, application CU 19-12, application by Civil Engineering Associates on the behalf of James and Andrea Crook for conditional use review to rebuild a non-conforming structure. Property is located at 282 Clearwater Road, is located in the residential district, Lakeshore Overlay District, Stormwater and Floodplain, and Watercourse Overlay District. All right, Ravi, kick us off, please.
To sum this up, this is pretty much a one-to-one replacement of the impervious surface that's encroaching within the setback. Currently, there is 1,238 square feet of impervious surface, so that includes all the walkways, sidewalks, and the house footprint as well as an existing outhouse. And with the proposal to reconfigure the walkways along with the removal and the rebuilding of the house, the final square foot would be 1,234 square feet. So in terms of compliance on that matter, staff finds no concerns with that. The only item to note is under section 1816, because this property would be within the floodplain and watercourse or overlay district, all applications under this section shall contain a Vermont Agency of Natural Resources project review sheet for this proposal. Staff recommends that the applicant submit a project review sheet when they come in for a zoning permit for this project. At this point, staff will defer to the applicant.
Okay, is anyone here to speak to this application? I am. Mr. Milbank. Jack. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, under pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Jack.
Well, Ravi's pretty much summed up what I was gonna, but he's done a nice job explaining the project. There's the Crooks own the adjacent property to the north. That's their primary residence. They've been looking forward to the opportunity to buy this piece of property at 282 Clearwater and use it as a opportunity to build a guest cottage. The plan is to demolish the existing camp, and under 1750.2, we're going to move this laterally along the 102 contour, getting no closer to the lake. It's going to be, it is architecturally designed. There was some elevations and floor plans there. It's designed to be a nice fit with the adjacent property to the south and the adjacent property to the north by creating some nice angles and little steeper pitch roofs. We've worked with distinctive landscaping and coming up with a plan, and Ravi with coming up with a plan that we wouldn't increase any structure in the 100 feet from 102. We think it's a thoughtful plan. It's a good plan, and we're here to seek approval for it.
Thanks. Any questions from the board members?
Just one, Jack, you're fine with the two conditions that I suggested for the approval, and That is, the zoning permit is required, and you're going to submit the project review sheet?
Project review sheet, absolutely, no problem. The other thing I was going to mention, we are going to be hooking on to, we're going to improve, it's on town water, but we're going to be actually hooking onto town sewer and abandoning the on-site wastewater. So that'll be an improvement
Improvement,
there.
right.
So a project review sheet is no problem at all.
Okay, great.
Any questions from the board? Is that a no
Do
or
we
a
have to
five?
dig into how the impervious surfaces are going to have their water taken care of?
In terms of stormwater,
Yeah.
in this case, no.
Okay,
That stormwater requirements are not triggered by this application.
okay, thank
We're
you.
actually reducing the amount of impervious area, but just so you know, as part of what we talked about 2 weeks ago, and I just restate, the shoreline stabilization project with the boulder wall, part of the plan is to create, we have create disconnect with plantings between which are not present now, and we are on a very relatively shallow slopes. We're not on steep slopes, so we think that with the plantings but we're in good shape.
Any other questions from the board?
I'm ready to make a motion.
Let's ask the public if they want to.
Oh, yeah,
Any questions from the public?
I'm still ready.
Is this a lakefront property?
Yes.
Yes.
How did you get through the state? Did the state say they didn't want to review the project?
We haven't been through the state yet. We have a Lakeshore Protection Act permit to seek.
Oh,
We have double permitting for lakeshore projects.
So you still have to go through the state. You go through Shelburne first, and then you go through the state.
We can do them concurrently, but it makes much more sense to make sure we get local approval before it's very difficult, even at the local level, with regulators and changes and just getting a cohesive plan together. And so if we're trying to do that with two agencies, it's very difficult. I can tell you right now, from the state standpoint, we're not creating any new impervious area. We are, we aren't going to have any problem.
Process,
Oh.
because I was just in another town where they had me go to the state first to go through the lake shore, and then they wanted to look at it. So that's why I was interested.
I like coming here first.
We're a nice group.
There's medicine for that.
Any other questions or comments from the public?
Okay, I'll make a motion to finalize the record and close the hearing for application CU 19-12. And I will also move to direct the staff to prepare a decision indicating approval of CU 19-12 with the following conditions. And for the secretary's purposes, I'm accepting verbatim the draft language submitted by staff. The first condition is a zoning permit is required prior to commencing any site work pursuant to section 2010.1. Second condition is the applicant must submit a Vermont Agency of Natural Resources project review sheet with their application for a zoning permit.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up, application CU 19-11 and DR 19-20. Application by Barbara, Comright? Como, thank you, for conditional use and design review to renovate and expand a non-conforming structure. Property is located at 995 Falls Road, is located in Shelburne Falls Mixed Use District, Village Design Review Overlay District, and the Stormwater Overlay District. All right, Ravi, you want to get us started?
So this is a proposal to renovate an accessory apartment. There would be some internal renovations involved, replacing windows and doors, along with a slight bump out of the second floor by 140 square feet. This is a legally non-conforming use. The property in that location dates back to 1960. In terms of the nonconformity and the proposal, the applicant does not propose expanding the building footprint with the increase in the floor area. It would be adding it's, the footprint itself is as is shown on the site plans that are enclosed. It's just over the, I guess, the slight bump out that's on the first floor. So even with this increase in square footage, it's not an increase in the footprint, and it's not an expansion of the nonconformity as well. It's in conformance with our height regulations. It doesn't encroach any further into the setback. The applicant also received approval from the Historic Preservation and Design Review Commission on October 24th, 2019, and they recommended the condition that a zoning permit be required prior to any construction. Other than that, staff will defer to the applicant.
Okay, is someone here to speak to this application? Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury?
Sure.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Sure, it's Barbara Como.
All right, what would you like to add? What do you want to tell us?
I'd really like a permit. It's really, not really changing too much about it. I've worked with Historic Review for a number of other projects on this same property. I've renovated 985 Falls Road, and we also renovated a large barn. Everything from the road and the streetscape is intended to maintain the same look and feel. So I think we've been fairly successful with that. Historic Review seems to be pretty happy with it. Really making modernizations and updates to increase efficiency and really bring some things into 2020 rather than 1960.
All right, any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? All right, someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to finalize the record and close the hearing for applications CU 19-11 and DR 19-20. I further move to approve, I further move to direct the staff to prepare an decision indicating approval of CU 19-11 and DR 19-20 with the following conditions, and for the Secretary's purpose, as in the prior case, the motion to approve and conditions are verbatim from the staff's recommendation report. The first condition being a zoning permit is required. Actually, and the second condition is a placeholder, so there's just one condition as drafted by the staff.
Wait a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, application SUB 19-06, application by Richard and Margaret Munier for preliminary plan review for the purpose of two-lot residential plan unit development. Property is located at 136 Southview Drive, is located in the rural district. Okay, Ravi, please start us.
So the applicant is proposing to create two lots. One of the lots would be 3.9 acres. Proposed lot one, and the other lot would be 6.3 acres. This was last reviewed in May 2019 at sketch plan. Since then, the applicant has indicated to us the location of the open space. They provided a draft open space agreement that we will review upon approval of the final plan, should the DRB approve the final plan at that stage. One concern to note is that this does trigger stormwater review requirements under section 1900.4, and staff has not received comments from Water Quality Superintendent Chris Robinson or City of South Burlington Assistant Stormwater Superintendent Dave Wheeler about stormwater for this project. Therefore, staff recommends continuing the application until stormwater comments have been received. However, should the DRB find no concerns, I've talked this over with the Water Quality Superintendent Robinson, that they can provide stormwater comments for final plan review, and that can be held until final plan review to be further reviewed and under consideration. At this point, staff will defer to the applicant.
All right, someone here to speak to this. Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury?
I do. I'm Dave Marshall from Civil Engineering Associates, here representing Peg and Dick Minier. At this point, the application cover sheet is depicted here, where we've actually highlighted the outer edges of the perimeter of the existing property and then the proposed subdivision line. The Miniers live at this particular location right now, and they're proposing to build their new home down closer to Spear Street. In this particular plan, north is actually to the left, which is odd, but nonetheless, it is the way that this particular plan is oriented. The way the topography basically works is that we have a lower meadow area that occupies this particular area adjacent to Spear Street, and then it kind of works its way up gently along Southview Drive, but there are a number of bedrock outcrops that create areas of interest. In this particular part of the property, it allows the existing house to sit well above the street. This is a preliminary plat application, and you will have another bite at the apple with the final plat application. We do concur or are semi-frustrated with the stormwater issue. We did receive a sign-off letter from the department heads that there were no comments with regard to anything associated with sewer, which also covers stormwater for the town. So we proceeded with the application accordingly, and obviously have this come up at the last minute is frustrating for the Miniers as well as ourselves. So we were hoping that the board would be able to take the opportunity that Ravi has outlined as far as including that particular condition of approval, that the applicant address any stormwater comments that come in the future as part of a final plat application. But at this point in time, this application is very similar to what you saw before. It's sketch plan. We have revised the driveway width to address the fire department comments, and we have also revised the proposed open space. One of the challenges of the new requirements within the subdivision and zoning bylaw is that all projects that are seeking approval under the less than 15-acre property looking to subdivide into two pieces, two lots, I should say, is required to still provide 60% of open space. And when you're dealing with a big, open, undeveloped parcel, that's easier to do. Obviously, historical development patterns being what they be on a property of this particular size, just over 10 acres, we have identified what those particular open space components are. It is something that was reviewed by the Natural Resources Committee. We did make revisions based on the recommendations, and that's what's presented to you today.
So is this the, is this the one where there's a requirement of 60% and you come in at 59.8? Or is that another, am I confusing this with a matter that's later on the agenda?
It's a 60% requirement, and the applicant comes in at 59.8%, if I'm not mistaken.
So
Can't round up? Just kidding.
And
Yes,
actually,
that
was
needs to be corrected.
Actually, that's the issue I'm raising. Do the
Okay.
two of you have an understanding about whether that's close enough or it's an issue that has to be
No, it's not
resolved?
close enough. It needs to be corrected. Yes.
And I'm assuming that, well, let me do it this way. Correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding of Ravi's summary of the process, if we approve this without getting the comments first, is that the good news is you've gotten through this stage of the process. The other news is when you come up for the final, you have to address anything in the comments. And depending on how soon you get them before the final approval hearing, that may be easy or a challenge. So,
Well,
as
we
long as
asked,
you and Ravi both see it the same way in terms of the process, I'm fine deferring to the two of you.
okay, that's fair. We would like to think that we can get comments back out of staff. If it wasn't for tonight's meeting, it would be something shortly thereafter. Obviously, it's not a priority for them, I'm guessing. And therefore, based on the character of this particular project, it really doesn't have a lot of exposures on the stormwater end of things. So that being the background, we ask that the board do provide that particular flexibility to allow the applicant to move forward, only because of the work that was done prior to getting department head sign-offs, and then to have this come up the way it does.
Somebody explain to me when letters that saying it's acceptable and now it's not acceptable? How did that happen?
So, under town subdivision regulations, section 600, subsection 28, it states the 9 departments that it requires signatures from. One of them being specifically wastewater. And so therefore, my understanding was that the water quality superintendent signed off on wastewater, but stormwater is a different requirement that I had forwarded to him and Dave Wheeler 3 weeks ago, when I had received the application.
The application was received how long ago?
Well, the application was received
October 11th.
October 11th. Soon after that, I do recall forwarding the application for stormwater review.
Okay, so what Chris has signed off on here is
Wastewater,
for wastewater.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, if we had a chance to do this over again, would we bring this up back when the preliminary was presented?
This is
This is
preliminary.
This is, I mean, so why is this considered late breaking news?
Well, in theory, they should have gotten any comments and had a preliminary response to those comments to present to us tonight, but because they didn't get any comments before the hearing, because comments weren't filed before the hearing, neither we nor the applicant have anything to respond to. But since this isn't final approval, and the staff's proposed motion says that any recommendations made by the water quality superintendent must be taken into consideration, that we in effect have the chance to either approve or blow up the case in final.
We saw this earlier in the year, right?
Yes.
Okay. Should that have come up when we saw this earlier in the year? Not a sketch.
Not a sketch. It doesn't-
Stormwater review is triggered under section 1900.4 for site plan review, and all PUDs must undergo site plan review, usually a preliminary plan review.
Okay.
I mean, I see no problem with, approving this, with the condition or subject that it was approved that we did not have that as a board. We
Right.
did not make any decisions based on stormwater, and that will be deferred to the final. And now that risk is on the applicant to address those concerns at final.
So I think the middle ground would be is that the site plan does not need to be approved prior to going to final plat. So what we could do is just continue the site plan application and have it reviewed at the same time as the final
As the
plat
final.
application.
Okay.
That allows for staff comments to come in a timely manner. It allows you to provide a preliminary plat approval with conditions, and then we can basically pull everything together at the final plat.
So what would the motion be like to accomplish that goal, Robbie?
I think,
Because, you could argue procedurally that continuing it gives you the same result as long as the board understands that we're
Right.
going to act on both the preliminary and the final at the same time.
right, so I think what has been drafted here would actually work. I think the specific language that the applicant is talking about can be better explicitly put in the decision, in your findings.
Yeah, I agree.
So help us with the wording for the actual motion tonight then, Rob.
I think it's, the way it's drafted works.
Motion to continue.
Yeah.
Motion to continue or motion to authorize? Motion to continue?
Yeah. The work,
So it would,
See, normally
So
a motion
w-
to
yeah, are
continue
you-
would just tee up the preliminary for the next hearing.
are you
Final.
leaning towards authorizing the applicant to file a final plan with a site plan review application, or would you like to continue the preliminary plan application until you have the stormwater
Yeah, if we just
comments?
continue, we don't advance
it
the ball
doesn't move
forward.
forward unless,
My vote is to just close this and approve it per this, and authorize it. And the second condition in here, I think, covers that.
Yeah,
And we'll see it final. And hopefully somebody gets a,
Yeah, we're just looking for a way to basically move through the preliminary plat process
Right.
and
And
be
I
able to
think
go
that-
on to
I think-
final, with the understanding that the site plan is still open,
Yeah.
that you still have, this being open, you still have the opportunity to receive comments, both from staff as well as the applicant with regard to open issues.
Okay, then
I agree.
my inclination is to stick with a draft motion to authorize language.
Yep. So,
Unless somebody on the board has an objection.
I agree with that. I think we need to ask the public if there's any comment before we go any further.
Any questions, comments from the public?
All right.
Any more discussion from the board? Okay,
I
let's
then
take a
would-
shot.
I
Good,
then
Mark.
would make a motion to finalize the record and close the hearing on this application, SUB 1906. And I would make a motion to authorize staff to prepare a decision authorizing CEA to prepare a final plan review, including the 2 conditions as written in the staff report.
All right, we have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Very good.
you good?
Thank you.
All right, you're good.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, next up, application SUB 16-01R2. Looks like it's to be continued or not, Ravi? How do I interpret that?
So this application was continued from the October 2nd DRB meeting.
Okay. All right, application by Scott Gardner for sketch plan review for a 4-lot re-subdivision properties at 1036 and 1056 Falls Road are located in the Shelburne Falls Mixed Use District, Village Design Overlay District, and Stormwater Overlay District. All right, Ravi, you want to get us started?
Okay, so this, so the materials were provided to you for the October 2nd meeting. Do you have those plans or?
No.
Okay, I have 5 copies. Yeah. I just figured. So the applicant is proposing a 4-lot subdivision, re-subdivision, subject properties located at 1036 and 1056 Falls Road. 2 of the lots are located at 1056 Falls Road. So if you flip it over, it's the existing conditions with the 3 lots. And the applicant's proposing, on the other side, the 4-lot configuration. So currently, there's a 0.29 acre lot, 0.6 acre lot on the back. And then let's see, where's the other lot? Where did I write the other lot? But there's a 3rd lot that's 1036 Falls Road. And now the applicant's proposing 4 lots, 1 lot of 12,500 square feet, 12,525 square feet, a 42,625 square foot lot, and a 28,729 square foot lot. The applicant's proposing single-family homes on all 4 lots. And public water and sewer connect to all these lots. Let's see here. Regarding any concerns, one thing the applicant is well aware of that is that prior to the approval of the applicant's preliminary plan review application, the applicant will need to acquire recommendations from the Historic Preservation Design Review Commission. They've already started discussion with the Historic Preservation Design Review Commission on this proposal. And lastly, staff recommends that the applicant provides a landscaping plan with the preliminary plan application. The landscaping plan must show hardwood-shaped trees on both sides of the private roadway per Town Subdivision Regulations, Section 810, Subpoint 4. At this point, staff will defer to the applicant.
Someone here to speak to this application?
Hi, my name is Scott Gardner.
Hi, Scott. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury?
Certainly, yes.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit more about?
Well,
Sure.
thank you, Riley, for the summary and helping me to get through here. I did miss the last meeting, and I apologize to waste your time. I was confused because I was going to the historic meeting, and I thought I had to complete with them before coming back to you. But you may recall that I came to see you several months ago. And my understanding is that I'm starting all over again, because originally I came and I wanted to put a triplex, and thought better after meeting with you. There was some feedback at that meeting, and one of the neighbors was not that impressed with the idea. So we've now said, okay, just 2 single-family homes out back. So that's where we are now. And my understanding is I'm starting all over again, although I've proceeded well with the Historic Committee. And it looks like they're pleased with what we presented there so far, although we have another meeting coming up.
Just so I get my bearings straight from your site proposed here now, there's an existing foundation that was put in maybe a year or so ago?
Yes.
How does that relate to this?
Can I get up and show you on your drawing?
Foundation's there, they put it.
Okay, so that's that foundation right there. That's on lot 2. And this is an existing house on lot 1. This garage we built, and we built that up for the historic people to see, because part of our proposal is to take down that red, if you're familiar with, there's a red vinyl sided barn there. Well, that's about 30 feet away from this nice historic looking structure that we just built, so. The theory is there'll be 2 very nice historic looking houses on the front and 2 houses out back, which I am not really wanting to give a plan yet. My goal would be to sell those and have the people come and get permits and work with you on those designs. There is one important point here, and Ravi cleared it up for me, because I thought this was a relatively minor application, in that there's 3 building lots there now approved by the town. So we're only creating 1 more lot, even though we're adding almost 1.25 acres to the mix there, with the deep lots that go all the way back to the La Platte.
So which ones, what's the 1, 2, and 3? Is it 1, 2, and 3 are the current?
So there are 3 lots currently in that location.
You gotta go the other way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so any subdivision that yields 4 or more lots from the parent lot must be categorized as a major subdivision.
This is the foundation.
Got it.
This was the plan before we put this foundation in. There was an old house here and a shed there.
Got it.
This tree is still there. We kept that tree there. This is the house that the old one is there.
Okay.
And this is the approved lot of that.
Okay, thank you.
So our, we're just to approve the sketch plan
We're really just giving feedback.
feedback at this point, right?
I don't see any major issues with the proposal, although there are obviously some process hoops have to be gone through between now and preliminary, but recognizing that we're not at preliminary now because the process cycled over again. And we're just providing feedback. I think the question is there anything about the current proposal for the ultimately 4 lots that gives anyone on the board any concern? There's not a major concern that I have.
Not a concern. Let's just, the whole stormwater thing, are there items that we should make the applicant aware of now so they're not caught by surprise, or we're not caught by surprise, so there's no surprises?
So for stormwater, it's under subdivision regulations, section 800, sub.4. When the proposal includes adequate provision for erosion prevention and sediment control during the construction, minimizing stormwater generation after construction, adequate stormwater treatment after construction, as determined by a standard equivalent to that required under 1900.4. The standard listed under 1900.4 is the Stormwater Management Manual, Town Public Works Specifications, Article 4, and standards set forth by the Vermont DEC, Department of
All right,
Environmental
so
Conservation.
can you summarize that in two slow sentences?
The applicant is required to minimize stormwater impacts, and they are required to pull any necessary permits from the state and to comply with all manuals in effect by the town and the state.
Okay, I think that, thank you.
Thank you.
And that first statement was very important. So you have that consideration in mind to minimize stormwater
Well,
impact.
thank you for bringing that up, and it's interesting because my engineer are the same engineers that were in here tonight, and we've already kind of looked at that.
Okay.
There isn't a concern based on the fact that this is not, I'm not a developer. So I'm gonna finish the house that's there, we're not gonna rip up the whole area and build
Yeah, but I'm
four
looking at a
houses.
driveway. You're putting a pretty substantial driveway in. So just take
Right.
that in mind and.
The driveway exists already, it's just being expanded, but we will go through that.
Good.
What I'm trying to
Exactly.
say is that I don't know how many square feet it is.
I know, that's just something for you to be aware of and have that as part
Yeah.
of your process that you go
We
through.
went
Okay,
through a
thank you.
painful process in another case where it was clarified to us that-
Yeah.
that no matter how small certain proposals are,
Yeah.
that while there are not
Yeah.
specific regulations that govern what you have to do, you still have to minimize stormwater.
Right.
So the goal is for you to come back to us at preliminary and at final with proposals that no one can look at and say, oh, he
Yeah.
didn't minimize stormwater running.
Yeah, well, I'll make sure the engineers put that on the next plan.
Perfect, thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That was,
Yeah, and I would just comment, you know, I wagered from hearing testimony at the previous hearing and what some of your neighbors were talking about, they're probably more pleased with this layout. I'm just
well, one of them
surmising that,
came
so I
to the
think that's-
historic committee meeting and was to voice their support of it. And nobody has come to complain except the one gentleman at the very first meeting, and you were here and he spoke. And I went and met with him afterward, but he has not come to the subsequent meetings.
okay. Very good.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think for sketch, that's probably,
Yeah, that's it.
Could there be something more formal, because, can't you say, okay, I kind of approve of this plan the way it is, and if you,
That's what it is.
Yeah.
well, that's what we're doing,
gonna do.
but we're actually not approving a plan. What we're doing is approving you to proceed to
but
the
I
next
didn't hear a
stage.
vote.
Well,
We're working on
we're
it.
doing it right now.
It takes us a while to get there.
I apologize.
So, to move that process along, I'll make a motion to finalize the record and close the hearing.
You gotta classify it?
Oh, sorry, you're right. I have to move to classify it as a major subdivision. It's the other side of the page. And then move to finalize the record and close the hearing for application SUV 16-01R2. And I move to direct staff to prepare a decision to authorize a preliminary plan application for 4-lot re-subdivision with the recommendation that the applicant must submit a landscaping plan, and this plan must depict hardwood shade trees. For the secretary's purposes, this is verbatim the draft language in the staff recommendation. And that's it.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. How was that?
It was good, but you didn't mention the whole thing about the next process that
He'll take you through that.
okay, all right. All right, I'll get there. Thanks, Ron.
Actually,
We don't want to take the work away from it.
actually, the motion authorizes you to prepare a preliminary plan review application. That was what the motion said.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right,
Back to
next application. Application DR 19-21, application by Christina Jensen for design review to replace windows and add new flagstone walkway. Property is located at 1115 Falls Road, is located in the Shelburne Falls Mixed Use District, Village Design Review Overlay District, Floodplain and Watercourse Overlay District, and Stormwater Overlay District. Okay, Ravi, you want to get us started?
Sure, so the applicant is looking to replace a total of 10 windows and a and to add a new flagstone walkway to their property. The correspondence that was provided to you in addition to this was a correction to the staff report that was provided to you, indicating that a total of 10 windows are going to be replaced, and that is what the Historic Preservation and Design Review Commission reviewed during their meeting on October 24th. They recommended approval with the condition that a zoning permit be required prior to the start of any work on the property. Staff has no concerns to note about this project. At this point, staff will defer to the applicant.
Hello.
Hi,
I'd like to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Christina Jensen.
All right. What would you like to tell us?
Well, this is the last chapter of replacing the windows in the house. When I'm done, they'll match and they will look better. So I think you ought to approve it. That's sort of the short version. The windows I'm replacing are old double hungs, they're inefficient and not great looking. So what I want to do is replace them with windows that match the ones that you guys have already approved. And the trim will match. And then I want to put in a stone walkway from the driveway to the front door. So it's about 10, 15 feet. I put pictures in the materials. I don't know if there are any questions about it.
We'll find out. Are there any
Good.
questions? There are none.
I thought there might not be.
All right, since there's no one else here in the public, I guess we're clean there also. Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to grant the design review approval to Christina Jensen for the replacement of the windows and a new flagstone walkway at 1115 Falls Road with the following condition: a zoning permit shall be required prior to the start of construction. For the secretary's purpose, there was a slight modification in the original staff language to more accurately reflect the revised information on the number of windows.
Do you have a second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Very good.
Thank you.
Here we go. Thank you. All right. Any other business before we adjourn?
So for the record, I did approve 2 administrative site plan review applications under section 1900.11. I have the authority to approve minor site plan review applications. I just have to notify you that I did. So one was for the addition of a bike rack at Shelburne Commons. The other was for a change of use that you actually reviewed, I think probably last month. And there were no changes to the site plan, part of that change in use.
Okay. All right.
All for this, yeah.
Good job. How does our schedule look for the next, for the remainder of the year?
Schedule. There's a scheduled meeting on November 20th.
How full is the agenda?
How full is the agenda? Not too full. It's not, I think it'll be less than today.
Okay.
Why are you suggesting we push to December?
Just checking. Let's see if we got any big things coming in.
Should we close the hearing?
Yeah, I mean, you can
All
definitely
right.
do that too.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Wait, hang on.
I do have some other business I'd like to talk about. I did want to talk about, go back to just kind of a discussion about the pre-court decision and the stormwater. And so in preparation for our meeting with, you folks and Lee, I went through all of the previous staff reports and the big blue book there to try and best understand it. And I think, long story short, and I won't go into detail, but first of all, Ravi, I think you do a great job on these staff reports. I mean, you really, it's an amazing job and your command of what's in those blue books. So, saying that, when I go and read through these on Sundays before these meetings, I always focus on the big black bold print, because that's Ravi's picked up on something that we ought to be thinking about. And that is staff's job to make sure that there's conformance going on with the big blue book, and if not, then you raise the issues. So in this case, again, I'm not trying to be punitive here, or whatever, but I think, we collectively missed it, because if you look at the staff report, and you actually put in the big blue book, regarding stormwater, respective size for the area disturbance, blah, blah, so that's there, but there's no staff comment in any of these hearings that, you didn't find any of that being addressed, or there were shortcomings, and so I think I would just like to ask.
What are you looking at when you're referring to
This
that?
is like, this is the,
Original application.
staff report, January 16th, okay?
Okay, so it's one of the originals.
One of the originals.
Yep.
And so, he does, prior to that, talk about, a lot of different issues and, the triggering, non-triggering of the stormwater
Yeah.
and not an issue. But when it came to the part of, irrespective of the size of the area disturbance, the amount of stormwater and other service leaving the project shall be minimized, there was no staff comment. And again, when I read these, I'm figuring you've done the hard work and the heavy lift here and trying to make sure that things are in order, and if not, or if there's any kind of questions that we ought to know about it, that it'll be here in bold print, and then that's a discussion matter. So, I would just like to ask, especially now with stormwater and any of these things, that if indeed there's missing information, in your opinion, that it gets put in here as something highlighted that we should discuss, talk about, could be an issue, maybe not. And I think that's where, and I wasn't at this one, nor the final one, so I'm just kind of like looking at this from the spectator view, because I, as a DRB member, can't read through all of this and then go do all the research.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I'd be having a desk in there with you and Dean. That's not the job of the DRB. I think we're supposed to be focusing in on things that you want us to focus on, and
Well,
Our
to jump in
concern,
on
so-
that, though, at least as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robbie, the application as submitted didn't contain any information on new catch basins or stormwater. And therefore, there was nothing for Robbie to react to other than, as I recall, a single sentence that recited that all stormwater would go to the existing town catch basin. So he had nothing to comment on until the work was discovered later on. Now, as soon as that work was discovered, certainly Robbie should have been communicating with us before the hearing about the issue. But at the beginning of this process, he had nothing to react to, as I recall.
But I would-
Am I misstating that, Robbie?
I think let me just.
Well, let's let Robbie confirm or correct the factual recitation I just made.
So, I mean, at that time, I had nothing to review because everything was flushing out into the existing system. But I think throughout this process, I've realized my own shortcomings, and I do want to be a better staff person for this, and I do want to improve upon this. So I've definitely learned from this, and we'll try to improve on informing you better, because I know that you're not going to go through the entire blue book, and you depend on us as staff to provide a comprehensive review. So.
Well, one of the things that we have to have is some way to measure whether they're minimizing their stormwater, and that there are no rules that we can look at. So it's up to the applicant to provide us with calculations
Yeah,
of
it
what they're
is,
doing.
and my point.
And we need to point out in the preliminary, if not earlier, that they need to bring those numbers in.
Yeah, and if you, and to your point, John, yes, there was nothing there, but I guess if I'd actually been looking at this in detail, I would have said, well, there's nothing here that tells me anything, so I can't make a decision on that, so, this is a big black bulb print, nothing was provided, this is an issue.
So to that effect, it's almost like a default trigger. When something comes in, you automatically just have it cut and paste the default thing, make sure stormwater's okay. I'm oversimplifying, of course, but to the applicant, so they have that in their thought process as they're preparing their site plans and stuff and presenting to us.
Well, but just let me say out loud what I think you guys are saying, so we're all clear on it. That would mean that without regard to the size of the project, including the one that we just
Yeah,
finished
exactly.
discussing, that that every applicant that's subject to the generic stormwater rule, not the specific regulations, has to, as part of their application, generate stormwater data so that we can look at it, or Ravi can look at it before us and say that it appears to have minimized stormwater runoff. So we're adding a new piece of data that a large number of applicants will need to build into their
Well,
process.
I don't know if we need numbers.
I
The
think,
problem is there's no standard to design to.
Right.
Right.
And the person who ultimately is gonna have input to that is gonna be either the South Burlington consultant or Chris Robinson. So, it really falls into, it's basically the authority having jurisdiction. Jurisdiction has the last say, the way it works now. So it's pretty hard to have an engineer go through and do all the calculations and what do you design to? You know, do you design to minimize is a pretty subjective term, so.
Right.
Can't make it worse.
And, you know, in that case, you know, and I think the thing people need to realize that, when it comes to stormwater, it's basically impervious area creates stormwater. You know, whether it's conveyed through a catch basin, a pipe, or a swale, it doesn't change the stormwater, it merely changes the conveyance. So it's really got to do with impervious area. And there should be some way to quantitatively come up with some, because we're going past what the state requirement is, we've got to have some design criteria for them to design to and work towards.
And I don't know what that is, but if we're gonna hold them to that minimize, then they ought to know about it, and they ought to have something to gauge it to, because, like, I agree with you, minimize is a really, it's really a bad word, because it's not a fixed number, because it could be like 0.
Well, the way to minimize is to have no increase in impervious surface.
Right.
So-
Or does that
But
mean
anyways,
you can't be more than 10% over what it used to be?
Who knows?
Or I could get 100% over, but I minimize it to 90% over.
And I think that-
It's an interesting,
And I think that's what Mark's saying, that not necessarily we, but someone needs to come up with a standard so that nobody wastes a lot of time inventing 8 ways of looking at the numbers when there's a standard that an appropriate authority sets for the town. And maybe it has to be adopted by us or planning, but,
I guess the point is that I think we need to, when we're working with these applicants right up front, we need to convey that to them that regardless of the size of the project, if you're underneath the state threshold trigger, you need to be doing some type of design, and you probably ought to get with the stormwater, water quality person, like,
yeah.
I thought
When you
his,
say- when
it's
you say
sketch plan.
under, when you say under, if you're under the impervious number?
no, if you're.
Under what?
like, Under the state
Under the state, so the
requirement.
state-
There's a
it's
state
not-
threshold.
there's a
The
state
state
threshold
laws
in which
aren't
there are
triggered.
specific regulations you have to meet to tell you exactly what to do.
From an impervious perspective or
From
from?
the stormwater perspective.
Oh, okay.
And
It's the area of
what our town
disturbance.
says is that even if you don't fall within that regulated area, you still have a duty to quote-unquote minimize.
Ah.
is laying out on
And-
top of
and
the
then
state.
what-
1900.4.
What Mark and I are raising is how do we create a process that is fair and reasonably efficient to the applicants? To say, this is what you have to do to be able to establish a
Why
minimum.
don't we just follow the state rules?
That's not what the planning committee.
Burdensome. They're designed for large commercial projects.
Okay.
No, not necessarily. I don't think that's a fair statement.
I don't think
It
we're
goes down
qualified
to
to state.
disturbances that are, an acre. It's not large, but the other part of that is I'm wondering, like in the case of this application from the Miniers, why they're getting hung up in that. They've gone through and there's this big stack of letters in here from all these departments, and Chris has been addressed as the wastewater person, but I guess you have to address a letter to him under 2 jurisdictions, one with wastewater and with stormwater. Would that have solved that problem?
I mean, the efficient way would be a
Why
single
can't
letter
you do
addressing
both?
both, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm looking at this letter in here, and it was,
Unless there's an issue that he hasn't expressed yet.
And again, it's the town requirements, not the state.
correct. So,
So
Well, I think what we need to do is we need to inform applicants as early as possible, like this was a classic case this morning. You're making your driveway bigger, more impervious, be aware of that, talk to your engineers, because we wanna make sure that you're doing something. Now, whether or
Okay,
not
but-
we can quantify that it's effective or not, we can't.
But I'm an applicant, and I've been through this hearing, and I've been told that, and/or I'm the applicant's engineer. So what process do I use to come up with an answer that I should have a good faith basis in believing the DRB will accept? We just use the word minimize, that's a
It's
wide
even
open
worse, because
field.
he's gonna subdivide and then give it to somebody to build.
I mean,
So what are they gonna do? They don't,
the simple way that I would address this right now, based on what I've seen here, is that it all depends on getting the letter reviewed from, I forget the fellow's name, is South Burlington. So it's almost like your staff report should say, oh, we received that, he's good with it, so all's good. Oh, we didn't receive anything, so
So he's our expert.
that's an issue.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay.
That's why he's
the
a
only
consultant.
like
measurement
an
we've
expert
got.
witness.
He's
Got
a
it.
he's our
That's a good
consultant, the
idea.
town hires him.
Okay, cool.
Alright.
So without any definitive data, that's what we have to.
Yeah,
we have
that's
to
what we look at.
Yeah,
Yep.
look at that.
I think at least under the present structure, that's the most efficient
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
All right.
And again, we're gonna need that for almost every single one.
Every one of them, I think, but,
Wow.
cool. So anyways, it was,
I
I
think
guess
I'm
my
going
comment
into
was just
stormwater
kinda
consulting business.
two things.
Good luck with
retiring
that,
from the
because
board.
there's more stormwater than.
I guess I was just trying to get across two things. One was, you know, the, dealing with this minimizing stormwater thing, but then more at a higher level, just,
Yeah.
you know, I love your black bold print there, cause
Yeah.
I know I gotta look at it. If I
Okay.
don't see it, I don't,
Okay.
Keep on going, right.
Okay.
I'm going.
Good comments, good conversation.
Make it red one day.
All right. Anything else from anyone?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, second? All's in favor?
Aye.